Very good. I want it to be recorded. All right. You're in already, right? So I didn't have to let you in. No. We are recording this. You can see my cat behind me. Hello.
Hang on, I gotta close the door so I don't keep hearing you.
Hello, Lori.
Typical. Hi.
You were on mute.
I was. This is my third event since 2:00 my time. So
Oh, really? Oh my
it's a busy
goodness.
day.
Well,
Yeah.
this is a real short one. We're not going to hold you too long. We've only got 40 minutes anyway. So, and we've only got like 5 people that are coming, I believe. So I'll introduce, after I introduce you, I'll introduce them and then you can, say hello.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having us have you. That was a real honor to have you here. So I think we have 2 more people. Oh, you're really dark. I can't see you, Sean.
He's
There you are.
mysterious for the talk today. I have to say, I just got my setup right after tons of events for my book that came out October 12th. I've been doing this for, since the pandemic, doing all my
Oh,
events.
yeah.
And I finally have a ring light.
Ah.
And today I have this new camera that my husband went and fetched. I'm like, oh, that's a little too HD. Actually, it's a little.
No, it looks good. You have good lighting. You have good lighting.
Too much detail.
My lighting never comes out right. I thought your book had been released on October 18th. You said the 12th?
The new one on the 12th, yeah.
Oh, that's the Death at Greenway?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For some reason, I thought it was the 18th, so I'll have to correct that. I hope I don't make a mistake when I say it.
It might be because I did an event for Poison Pen on, I think, the 18th, and she really thought that was my launch. And so I think they said that in a couple places.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, honey, I've been doing this for a week solid already.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, she probably did that.
For not being in the first week, but I don't know. Maybe next time I'll make her a part of the first week.
Well, I was waiting for 2 more people, but since we have a short period of time, I guess they can just come in at any time they want. And if they don't show up, I'll ask their questions for them. Okay.
Okay.
But so far we have 2 people and there's 2 more supposed to be coming, but I'll go ahead and let me first say thank you for everyone who's here, who's shown up, who is here. And
exciting.
Pardon me?
It's exciting. It's
I
been
know.
fun. It's been a really fun read. Really, really good, honestly.
Yeah, it was.
Hi, Lori. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It looks like Jim.
Yes.
Yes. And Sean.
Yes. Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thanks for asking me.
Well, before I formally introduce her, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Author Lori Rader Day is the Edgar Award nominated and Anthony and Mary Higgins Clark winning author of The Black Hour, Little Pretty Things, The Day I Died, Under a Dark Sky, and The Lucky One. Oops, hold on there. Her new book has just been released October 12th. It's called Death at Greenway, and I'm really looking forward to hearing her read a little excerpt to us about that one. And she will be reading that today. And it's based on true events of a group of children that were evacuated out of the Blitz during World War II, as related to Agatha Christie's, Holiday Estate, the Greenway House.
Holiday Home.
And I believe this book is published by Harper Collins.
Mm-hmm.
William Morrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Miss Rader Day has published a great deal in numerous publications like Time Out Chicago, Southern Indiana Review, Good Housekeeping, and Madison Review, which awarded her the Chris O'Malley Prize in Fiction. So she's well authored. She's authored quite a lot. So Miss Raider Day is also co-chair of the Midwest Mystery Conference. That's really exciting. And I don't know what FKA means, but it says Murder and Mayhem in Chicago. What does that mean?
Formerly known as, that was
Oh,
the
okay.
original name.
Okay, Murder and Mayhem in Chicago. And she's also an adjunct lecturer at Northwestern University with a Master of Arts and a Master of Fine Arts for poetry and prose. Miss Lori Raider Day, our honored guest today. We thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
It's my
Yeah.
pleasure, of course.
Now we're all out of time because of that long intro.
Oh,
So-
I know. My best friend took a look at my email signature once and was like, "There's too much stuff in there." I'm like, "But that's just the basics."
Yeah, I had
That's-
more. I had more, but so okay. So is there anything you want to add to that or say anything to us about?
Oh, no, just happy to be here. I think you guys read The Black Hour.
Yes,
I got,
yes.
the questions, and I'm happy to talk about The Black Hour. I should warn you that The Black Hour came out in 2014, and that is a
I
long
know.
time ago
No,
in,
but that's
Oh.
book writing
good.
world. So I'm
You know-
hoping that I remember enough to
Yeah.
answer your questions.
Well, our questions are pretty general, so I think you will. I think you will. So whoever's not here, I will just do their questions for them.
Sure.
But we can start with Sean. He seemed to have a couple of questions. You could ask one at a time and let her answer, and then I think you have two. So you can ask one, and then she can answer, and then you can ask the other. Okay, Sean?
Sounds good. Yeah, the first part of the question. Well, I'll just jump right into it. So when I was reading it, when you were developing the characters of Amelia and Nathan, there are a lot of, well, for my opinion, there are a lot of common personality traits and internal discussions of their perceptions of kind of like the world and surroundings. Was that intentional for them to kind of be similar or have a lot of similarities?
Yeah, that's a great question. It might be because I was writing them both, and this was my first book, so maybe I didn't separate them out well enough. But I do think it made a lot of sense to them to be sort of parallel in their experiences, so that the reader kind of gets both sides, but they know, the reader gets to know that they are very similar, whereas they don't necessarily see that for themselves. Nathaniel Nath is much younger and doesn't see Amelia maybe in the same way that she thinks he does, and of course there's that critical scene where they sort of connect in a sexy way, and they're not thinking about that situation at all in the same way. So even though they have these parallel feelings about things that have happened, and they're both very broken people, so they're both kind of in the shit, both of them, right?
Yeah.
And Nath is seeing her as like this almost, she was reminding him of her mother, and then that's going on, and of course she's not seeing him in that same way. So I don't know if it's the problem is I don't remember exactly why certain decisions were made, but I do think it makes sense that they are both
Yes.
really in a bad way, and so maybe that's the part that seems similar, is that they're both just looking for a way to get through what they're dealing with.
Yeah, they
Gotcha,
both
gotcha.
seem sad. Did they both?
Yeah,
kind
they're
of
really
depressed?
sad. They both
Yeah.
are very sad.
Yeah. Did you have more to that question, Sean?
The second part kind of was hinging on the first part, more of just like, if it was more intentional, how hard was that to kind of like sparse out the identities while keeping them similar? And I think when I first wrote this question, I was still probably like 3/4 away from the ending. And then once I got closer to the ending, they really, I felt like, came full circle. Whereas there was a lot of similarities, yet it was very evident, especially after that moment, that they were at different timelines of their own lives. So it was almost like a similar character that had gone through just different shades of a similar life and met at different points. And then after the events at the end, they have shared experiences, yet they've gone a different, more beneficial route for each of them.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
a
don't
great
know,
way.
that's kind of how I took it. I thought it was really great though. Like the
I-
ending.
I love that you feel that way about it. It makes me feel like maybe I did what I meant to do. I don't
Yeah,
really,
totally.
the thing to understand is I don't set out thinking, okay, I'm going to write a book about XYZ.
Mhm.
I
Wait, that's
mostly
your
just
next
have,
question.
oh, whose question is it? Is it Jen?
That's mine. Don't take mine.
Oh, okay. Okay, you asked
Okay.
your question, but Sean, thank you so much. That is such a great reading of that book and those characters. They really did have a lot in common. They're both so sad, so broken, but you're right, they're on different timelines. And
Yeah.
I really wanted, I didn't really want that relationship to be a romantic or
Yeah, no.
physical, sexual. I really avoided that in my first draft. I didn't want it. I didn't want, oh, because there's a man and there's a woman, it obviously has to go there. I didn't want that. But then it seemed like it really had to. But I wanted it to return to, okay, they've been through this thing. And now she is going to be his teacher. She is going
Yeah.
to,
That's
you
good.
know,
Yeah.
teach him. She's going to do the moral thing, and she is going to do her job, which is what that's what she wanted. She wanted to be a teacher again. And so I think it's a good ending for both of them.
I
Yeah,
think it was executed like amazing. That was
Thank
really
you.
great. I really enjoyed that. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
It kind of seemed like she had to hit that bottom with him to realize I'm his teacher. You know, it's kind of like she had to hit that bottom to come up.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what stops them, right? She thinks, there are things he could teach me.
Yeah.
Teach me.
Yeah.
I am his teacher. And then that's where the bottom
that
occurs.
was
You're
good.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's-
All right,
that's
Jen, hit
pretty-
me.
Okay. Well, just to add on to that, the very end, did you come up with him being gut shot also just to do it? Or was that just kind of a fun thing for you?
Parallels are a beautiful thing in fiction, Jen. Parallels.
Oh, I know.
I mean,
But
what Sean was saying, that kind of like they're on the same timeline, but just in different places on the same timeline.
Well,
Yeah.
I chuckled because he's gut shot, and then he has to go up the stairs just like
It was
she had
kind
to
of
go up the
funny.
stairs.
Yeah.
He took the elevator. He's smart.
Right.
I love that part, by the way.
He did take the
Yeah.
He's not a fool,
did the
but
elevator.
he's not too proud to take the elevator. But he does have a cane, right? And
Yeah.
so
Right.
yeah, it ends for the book where she began.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, mine's kind of basic. I got two questions, but how did the title of the book come about? And did you have other titles for the book that you were kicking around?
That is a great question. Back in the memory banks here. I don't think I had another title for this book, but it came when I had already written a great deal of it. I usually like to have some sort of working title. So I'm calling it something, I'm starting to get a feel for it.
Right.
But this book, I don't think it really had a title for quite a while. And the Black Hour is a term that I made up. It is not a real, as far as I know, it's not a real term. But it is connected to the real phenomenon in suicide hotlines, that the hours after the bars close is the busiest time.
Right.
Especially on a campus suicide hotline. So I took that fact that I interviewed somebody who had used to do take the calls, and
Oh, okay.
a friend's husband had done that work when he was a college student. One of the kids that would pick up the calls, and he was not evil, but he, it's like an important part of his college experience, and he told me some things about it, and that was one of the things he mentioned. It's the saddest hour, really. And so I kind of got that into my head, thinking, well, what could I make of that? And yeah, I think if that's the thing that the people who work at these call lines know, maybe they had a term for it. And so I decided that they would call it the Black Hour. But as far as I know, she calls it that.
Even the saddest hour would have been okay.
The saddest hour is a little less dark, right?
Black
Although
Hour.
the dark hour is something that people call, all my books get mistitled when they're trying to remember them. Darkest hour, the Black Hour.
But isn't it also, it's also the metaphor, it's also in your use, it's kind of like a metaphor for the actual time right before the dawn. It's usually very black right
Exactly.
before. So
The darkest
two-
moment is just before the dawn, I
Right,
think is
right.
the way
Yeah,
the phrasing
and that's
goes.
the darkest moment for people too. So that was pretty
Exactly.
cool. I like that.
And there's
Yeah,
So-
also, I mean, and they're all both having the darkest hour of their lives, you know, in
Yeah,
the course
yeah.
of the book.
that's true. That's
And
true.
then someone asked about the Black Room, which is another title I could have given the
That's another
book.
question.
Yeah, I read the questions and somebody asked about that. So the Black Room is sort of Amelia's experience of sort of not coming out, but like being out. You know, she's shot, she's hurt, and before she comes back, she sort of is experiencing this like, I can't move, I can't talk, I can't coma.
Mhm.
Her experience of her coma is that she was in the Black Room, and then when she rises out of it, you know, she's leaving the Black Room. But again, somewhat metaphor going on for you know, the darkest moment of her life so far.
Mhm.
It's not a real room.
Good. That's very good. All the
Okay.
way through. Oh,
Then-
you have another part.
It's really basic also, again, is since it was your first novel, where did the ideas come from? Was it something you had in your head for years, or just you started writing, or it's just something that, just tell us.
Yeah, I'll tell you the whole thing, Jim. I'll tell you the whole thing. So, this is my first published novel, but it's actually not my first written novel. So
Okay.
my first written novel started out as a short story in my MFA program. I needed a new story to bring in for workshop. Workshop is you bring, I think, 15, 20 pages of a story, and 15 to 20 people tell you what's wrong with it. It is a harrowing experience, but it's very useful
Oh.
in getting to be a better writer quickly. You get tougher skin too, really quickly. So this was over winter break. So I went to my local library and I just walked around and looked at the nonfiction section, just like basically shopping for an idea. And there was a book facing out on a display, it must have been new, called Sex, Lies, and Handwriting. And it was about handwriting analysis. And I didn't know anything about handwriting analysis, but I thought, you know, I could probably, yeah, I'll just take it home and see what it's about. So I read that book, and then I wrote a short story in which the character is a handwriting analyst who works with lots of places, but like with a local police officer when there's a note left behind at a murder kidnapping. And so, I mean, that seems like a lot for a short story. And that's what turned out. It was a long short story. And then my 15 to 20 workshop people were like, we want more of this, more of that, more of everything. And I went to my teacher and I said, how am I supposed to get more of everything into this short story when it's already a beast of about 40 to 50 pages? And she said, yeah, Laura, that's called a novel. So keep writing. Well, I wasn't writing a novel at the time. I was trying to graduate. So I was writing a collection of short stories. So I just kind of pushed it aside and went back to my thesis and wrote a bunch of short stories for my thesis. Like a fool, I should have really just like hunkered down over that novel. It's really hard to publish a group of short stories these days. So, but as soon as I had finished my classwork, and I think I spent like I graduated maybe May, and then just spent you know, all the time I had until I got a job again, a full-time job again, working on this book. And I just like I had a set date because I got a job interview and then I got a job, and I'm like, oh shit, now I need to finish this book before I start work. And then I spent my lunch hours working on this book, and I just worked and worked and worked until it started to fall apart in my hands. And I thought, well, this is not, I can't figure this book out. It's just a mess. It's just a pile of words. So I put it away. I put it away in the drawer. I think they use that term because they used to have actually like pages of stuff, right, that they had to put in a drawer. I just put it in a folder on my laptop called the drawer. I still have one. And it just sat there for a while, but I started something new. I had started a new job at a beautiful college campus on the north side of Chicago on the lake. And I wanted to write about a college campus. And the idea actually came from one of my coworkers, one of the women who worked on my team, actually. Was kind of a little bit gossipy. I love her. We're still friends. But one day, this older man sort of shuffled by, and she's like, that's the guy. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, that's the professor that was shot on campus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really happened. And it happened in the parking lot where I parked every day. What had happened is that he had a graduate student who, I think he graduated, so it was actually an alum of the school at that point, who couldn't get a job and blamed the professor that he could not get a job. Now, the professor knew exactly who this guy was and had, probably a restraining order, like really, really was concerned about the student. But the student brought a gun, shot him in the parking lot, and then ran.
Oh,
And when the police caught up with him, he shot himself and died. But the professor
wow.
came back and started teaching again. And so the interesting thing, I mean, that's obviously a very interesting story, but I didn't want to write it as nonfiction or anything close to it. What really was interesting to me was that this coworker of mine really wanted me to know this story. It happened in the 90s. He was, the guy was fine. He had a little shuffle to his walk, from his injuries, but he was fine. And he had found a way, but that whisper going on when he walked by, I'm like, oh, you're putting something, you're almost blaming him. You're putting something on him that he doesn't deserve. And that was what was interesting about that story to me. So I was blow drying my hair one morning, getting ready to go to campus to work at my job. And I suddenly was thinking, what was that first day back to campus like for him? I bet that was really kind of scary. And wow, people would have been talking about, and I dropped the hairdryer and was like, oh, okay. I know I'm going to write this story. This story is interesting me, and this is where I'm going to start.
I like the way it starts like that too. How she
That's cool.
really uncomfortable and she's really struggling and in pain. That was very good the way it
Thank
started.
you.
Yeah, we've all had that, somewhat of that experience. If it's being out sick from school for a longer period of time, going back, people are people watching me? Do I look different? Have my friends got new friends? Stuff.
I mean, walking back out of summer, we used to
Yeah.
have that kind of concern that maybe people had moved on without you, and I don't know what's going on. I've been out of the mix for a while. You're right, that experience, and since I wrote this book, I've actually had some chronic pain of my own. I have a herniated disc, yay for me. And so like that, I used to get complaints about this book that she thought about her pain too much, that she was whiny. I'm like, she was shot. She gets to be whiny.
It sounded a little bitter to me, of course.
She can be bitter.
Yeah.
That girl can be bitter. Yeah, exactly.
Better than that extra drink.
Yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
I think anybody.
She's got some coping mechanisms, and I don't blame her.
Right. I don't either.
I now have some coping mechanisms right here.
Well, and then the last part of mine, and kind of me and Lydia kind of touched on it. I don't know if Sean noticed it, but we really liked your character.
Joss.
Joss.
Oh, Joss. Oh, I
He
love
was
Joss.
more in
But
it.
we were kind of wondering how come she wasn't more in the story, because she
liked
seemed
her.
like such a cool person
Yeah.
for her.
Write another book about Joss.
That's interesting. Joss. I don't know why she wasn't in it more. I think because I needed to populate. I mean, if you've ever been near a college campus, like these departments have way more people than I've given that department usually.
Right.
Yeah.
So I needed to populate it a little bit. You're right. She is a cool character.
Yeah,
I based her a little bit on a friend of mine.
We instantly liked her, and I liked the way she acted on the boat when they were going to the other sailboat.
She
And
was
she
the
was-
adult, right? Like she was
She was
the
the
she was
adult.
good.
She took charge. Hey, no, we got to do this, and
yeah.
she seemed like she would actually have been the better friend than Corinne.
She was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You're right.
actually,
Or you could say that she's just a later version of Corinne, like a more matured version of her at a later time in life. She just seemed like she had more of a weathered maturity to her interactions, whereas Corinne just seemed a little bit earlier in that. But maybe she had all the integrity of the friendship there,
Yeah.
Right.
Corinne was definitely like juvenile, right? Like her
Yeah.
were,
Yeah, I didn't like her from the
teenager
beginning.
concerns.
yeah, silly girl.
Yeah, she was silly. Yeah. And definitely like dabbling in bad behavior. Yeah. Very bad behavior.
Very bad behavior.
But you're right. Joss is she's kind of like somewhere that Amelia can think to and think, okay, that's the kind of professor I'm going to be. I'm now that I've
Or
got
getting back
clear of
to,
this
yeah.
drama, maybe I can be that kind of professor for my students. I can
Yeah.
Oh, that's,
be a Joss
yeah.
to them.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and ask this question for Edie, who couldn't be here because she
Okay.
got someone bought her a ticket to see the C.S. Lewis Life movie,
Oh.
so she had to go to that. She had an assigned seat there. So,
If
but she had a
I'm
question.
beaten out by C.S. Lewis, that is fine. That makes sense.
Yeah, really. But the thing she was kind of like stood out for her was the part where, and after asking this question for you, I can answer it almost myself, but she asked regarding The Finger in the Dike by Nath, when he saw the bullet hole, and he put his finger in, and Rory saw him. She was asking what exactly was the significance of that. And also Amelia said something about the black room, but you already covered that.
Yeah.
So about that dike that he put his finger in, what were you expecting the readers to get from that?
Sure. So Nath he has a little bit of a death wish. I think that's more clear later on. At this point, he's not quite endangering himself, but he's sort of a fan of true crime. And this makes so much more sense now. Like, we've seen true crime explode since I wrote this book. It was not really this big a thing when I wrote this book, but I knew that there were people who were sort of fixated, obsessed a little bit with crime, with photos of crime. And I actually took a bus tour, like I talk about, just to see what that was like. So that event was it was actually based on the tour that I took, like the leaning down when the bullets, when the audio came on of the bullets, rat-a-tat-tat of the Tommy guns. So he puts his finger in the bullet holes that still exist in the Holy Name Cathedral from a shootout between Capone's people and I can't remember the other groups. There's another two groups shooting at each other, and some of the bullets hit this facade of a church, a Catholic church, which I don't think they would have been excited about that. But and then this church put stairs on this facade and had a new door, but there are still, I think, 3 holes that exist on the facade. And that's the thing that you see on the tour. They'll say, oh, and if you'll see, so for Nath to walk up and put his finger in one of those holes is him sort of connecting with this thing that he's fascinated by, and he doesn't even quite understand it himself. And finger in the dike is just like, euphemism, metaphor, I guess. But, he's messed up. He's got, a recently deceased mother and a broken heart. And, what he's clinging to is this fascination with crime and by extension, a fascination with Amelia.
That's exactly what I was thinking, is that that indicated his depression and his darkness inside.
Yeah.
The way he's
got a dark heart right now.
Yeah.
He's a kid that needs somebody to be his teacher and to give him like a path.
Not a drunken girlfriend.
Not a drunken girlfriend, not a bikini wearing girlfriend. He needs somebody adult in his life.
Yeah.
To show him the way. Yeah.
Well, I
mean,
think,
he's an adult, but he needs
he needs guidance and a good mentor.
Exactly.
Well, let me see if I have, Mike. Mike has one. He was supposed to be here. He had a long question.
Okay.
Well, actually, Mike's question, she's already answered about her fleshing out all her characters and stuff.
Except for the Chicago part. He says, you live in Chicago and the book setting is in Chicago. Given that Chicago has a violent past, with like the Valentine and all that, as many large cities do you think Chicago was the best setting, or could any city have been as good? But I think because you live in Chicago, right?
It's a great question. It's a thinker for me. The obvious answer is, I lived in Chicago when I was trying to write it, and I was driving onto this college campus. It was Northwestern. I work for them again, but I don't work in the same job anymore, so I can tell you it's Northwestern. I was driving to campus every day and seeing this beautiful lake, and I had started to sort of, pull this story in, and then I was trying to set it not at Northwestern because I worked there, and my job was not, in fact, to put a dead body on campus. I worked in public relations, so not a great way to keep a job that you actually kind of liked. So I was trying to move it away and rename things and move things around. But then the lake, it's just so beautiful. And every day I drove onto campus, the lake looked different. It had so many faces to it. And I thought, I want to write about that. I want to write about coming onto campus this beautiful campus and finding darkness anyway. So that sort of dichotomy. So it had to be a beautiful place where dark things could happen. But it could be other cities. I wanted it to be a place that I knew at least a little bit. I have always tried to write about places that I knew, I've lived, I've worked. Not until Under a Dark Sky did I write about a place I had never been, and I had to write it and then go there to make sure that I got it right. And I'm glad I did, because there are a couple of things that I would have gotten very
Isn't
wrong.
Lake Michigan is known for its sailboats though, right?
Yeah. Chicago
I
has
mean-
these marinas, downtown where, if you're lucky enough to own a sailboat, I do not. You can, harbor them and take them out. My boss at a different job that I used to have had a sailboat, and he would, take turns inviting coworkers down and just to go sailing. He wanted to go sailing, so he'd bring a few people along each time. And it was, and that's how I was able to write about sailing. I don't really know how to sail, but I'd been on a boat, and I am the person who got queasy. And so they shoved me at the helm and said, look at the horizon and you won't be sick. So
Yeah, that's true. Cause there was the one part where,
Excuse me, Jim, excuse me, I'm sorry. We only have 9 minutes left.
okay.
So I'm going to skip my question. It's not that big a deal. I just was excited about your tropes, how you had tropes throughout. But I would like to be able to have Lori read an excerpt of her new book before we end up leaving here. It's actually 8 minutes now. So
okay.
I'd like to hear that before we go.
Let me get to the right place here. I've got a little tiny excerpt that I think, here they go. Okay. This is just a really short little section, but it's from chapter 3, I believe, chapter 4.
That's Death at Greenway, right?
Death at Greenway. There we
Yeah,
go. It's paperback original. It's about the 10 children who were sent to Agatha Christie's house during World War II, to the war nursery that was there for a short time before they were sent elsewhere, because the house was requisitioned and they put sailors there. And it was one of the places where Operation Overlord was staged all along the River Dart right below her house. So the house itself has a rich history connected to World War II, and that's all in here. So here's just a little section. The children were tots, baby fat in their knees, below shorts and skirts, socks pulled up or sliding, shoes scuffed or untied. They had tags affixed to their coats and child-sized gas masks in paper cases on straps around their necks. They wore caps and hats or bonnets and flogged them to the ground in a tantrum. Those who were carried by their moms kicked to be let down. 2 were infants, dear God. Porters followed behind with pillow slips stuffed, picnic hampers, tiny cases ridiculous in large hands. Very few fathers were in evidence. Fathers were at the front or already in hospital, or worse. It was best not to think of fathers. Some carried bears or dolls or toy planes or tanks. Each child was allowed a favorite. As the platform filled, a young boy stopped running his pet locomotive along his mother's sleeve and looked on the soft toys the girls carried with hungry eyes. Comfort, too, would be rationed. So that's just as they're getting ready to leave the train station.
When the sailors take over the house, you mean?
Oh, no, this is when they're at the train station getting ready to leave to go to Greenway. I should have said that up front. Yeah.
Okay, you've hooked. I'll go get it.
Oh,
I said she hooked me. I'll go get the book.
Awesome.
well, there's 5 minutes left if you wanted to finish that question. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I didn't want her to,
Go ahead.
I didn't want to miss that.
It wasn't a question when we were talking about the sailboats. I actually lived in Chicago for a couple of years. I lived out in Schaumburg.
Okay.
But that one part where I think it's Nathan's, he's in the water at the end, and he's trying to find a hold on the sailboat.
Mhm.
And I know that feeling because there is no way to get on a sailboat.
Yeah.
You know, unless you go around, slide yourself around to the back of the boat and grab onto something, because you can't get onto the sailboat from the sides.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting there trying to, it's very, it's kind of
And
unnerving.
he had been shot by then too, so he's just
Yeah,
like, trying to
that's
hang
right.
on as best he can. Yeah.
He's
Right.
trying to make his way to the back of the boat, you know.
I had a lot of fun writing, that basically, when things start to come to a head, one thing I can tell you that we have time to say was that, so I wrote myself into the story as I do all my books. I don't really know where I'm going, what the story actually is. I just kind of write into it and learn as I go and figure out who I need. And then Nath himself wasn't originally planned. I was going to tell the whole story from Amelia's point of view. But I got about 50 pages in and realized how injured she was, and realized she was not going to be running around campus solving any crimes against herself. She was a very reluctant detective, of her own life, and not a great mystery character, to be honest. So I needed somebody who would partner up with her, partner in crime, that would start to do some of that work. And then also balance out the story, because Amelia is very injured and she is very messed up and dark. But I think most people like Nate because he's a little lighter, even though he's goofy and maybe also messed up. There's something about him that is a little more buoyant.
Well, he's younger too,
He's younger,
more
and
inquisitive, and
he's just kind of, he's a nerd. And people really enjoy kind of having that trade-off, I like Amelia, but not everybody does. So I didn't know what to do. So I reread what I had written, those 50 pages, and I realized I had given myself this student, who walks up behind her, and he was just there to show that she was nervous around students now, and that was going to be a problem for the career she had. But I didn't really mean to put him there for any other reason. I just thought this will illustrate that. And then I'm like, well, I need somebody, so let's see what he has to say. And then I just started thinking, okay, what's he do? Where's he going? Oh, he wants to meet her. He wants to meet her at the door. Okay, why? And then start writing into that story. And then I got him to a certain point, and I'm like, I miss Amelia. It's time to go back. So I did the 50 pages, and then 40, and then 30. It wasn't exact, but it was sort of like, okay, I'm going to give them
planned it out.
equal. And it helped me actually write the book. I don't know if I would have been able to get that story told if I didn't have that that was the only framework I had, was like, okay, if I want something to happen to Nath, I need to have it happen in the next 20 pages, because then I'm going to go to Amelia and she's going to do something else. But, and then at the very end, of course, it's like, page, half a page. And that gives a certain urgency to the story. Whereas maybe, that's a hard thing to write, urgency, but it was certainly fun by the time I got to that point, because it was moving fast.
So when they invited him out on the boat the first time, were you, after you wrote that, were you already planning to end the book kind of towards the boat also?
Planning is a big word. That is not a word that you can use for
Definitely.
anything I do, Jim. But
Okay.
I think once I decided that I was going to use that lake, because it was, speaking to me as I drove onto campus every day, then I thought, okay, well, if it's there, then I have to use it. Okay, so how can I get people out on the lake? All right, well, okay, Wynn is going to have a boat. This person is character that I'm going to invent, this person that has a boat and gets the students out there, or Nath at least. And then, yeah, once you've got something in play, well, you kind of need to use what you've got. Less than a minute. I decided I'm going to put a regatta. I'm going to put, it's going to be a thing. Everybody's going to be on boats, and then bullets are going to fly. That was my only plan. And it came very late in the process.
Okay, Lydia.
So I just want to say thank you if I don't get a chance.
Yeah, we only have like a few minutes. I just wanted to make sure that on the Death at Greenway, that's a mystery also, right? That's going to be a murder in there? There's going to be a murder in there?
Yes,
Okay.
there's a murder, there's a crime, and the two nurses that cared for the children are getting into
wonderful.
a lot of trouble.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Okay. We have to go now for sure. So thank you so much. We really enjoyed having you here. We're looking forward to reading your next book.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
It's
very
been fun.
much. It was a great read.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Thanks,
bye now.
Sean.
Okay.